chat. We are UCSS. Make sure you download the WKYC app so you can see the first hour, but this is the second hour, and we getting right off into this, man. The Cavs taking L's. And by the way, Donovan, what's going on with Donovan Mitchell? Like, the energy, it looks like he lost his dog. It looks like he can't explode. It looks like he can't, finish at the rim. It looks like, and by the way, he had 26 points, almost 30, but it wasn't a 30 that we was expecting. Guys, is there something wrong with Donovan? And is this a pattern with him having this type of, I guess, body language and looking like he's injured in these playoffs? Is he wore down?
I don't know what's going on. He hasn't looked like himself for much of these playoffs. He's had some incredible moments. Obviously, 39-point second half?
Yeah.
And had a great Game 7 against Detroit. So he has had moments where he has looked like himself. But they have been few and far between. He has not looked like himself for most of these postseason. And we played it off against Toronto as well. The Raptors were throwing junk defenses at him. He had a hard time deciphering them. Well, he had Asar Thompson on him in Detroit. Okay, well, we're kind of running out of excuses here. And I don't know what's going on. If he's hurt, frankly, I'm glad he's sort of keeping it to himself, because every May we're talking about Donovan's injuries. And I'm just kind of past that point. And he's got to be out there and he's got to produce. And he looked like he was exhausted at the end of Game 1 against New York. And we talked about that in the first hour. I think a lot of the Cavs' problems right now are because they didn't handle their business in the earlier rounds, and the bills coming due now because you let those first 2 series go to 7 games. So now you gotta pay the check for that. And you're seeing in real time the energy that it's taken out of them and how these guys look in the second half. So, I mean, 26 points yesterday is fine, but he just does not look like himself. He has not looked like himself for much of these playoffs. I have no good answer for you. I don't know what's going on, but there's a lot of big conversations coming up this summer about his future, and you would like him to look like himself going into those negotiations.
Yeah, he does look exhausted. He says he's not. We'll see. He does maybe look injured. We don't know. He says he's not. We'll see. But I know this. Sometimes the play breaks down, the defense gets caught out of place, and Donovan Mitchell stands still with a wide open 3. Not often. But that's not his game. And that's really his contribution in the third quarter last night was that. So I do know that it's an awkward future if things continue to go this way. And I do know that the Cavs are not coming back to win this series if Donovan Mitchell has dead legs. And based on what we've seen, he sure looks to me like he has dead legs.
The thing that I think, and I'm just going to speculate in my mind why he looks like this. I think when you are his size, and he's a 6'2" guy, right? But he's explosive, and he can, he was a high flyer, and he's really athletic. The problem is in the regular season, your intensity level at which you play may be a 40%, right? In the regular season, there might be 3 or 4 plays where you're really going out, last couple possessions, into halves, where you're kind of pacing yourself. But I think what happens with Donovan is because of the way he plays and the way the intensity is ratcheted up in the playoffs, that takes a toll on itself. Like, look at this shot diet. His shot diet is not easy. He's not getting anything easy. These are step backs. These are moves and floaters over 7-footers. These are multiple dribbling possessions where you got defenders loading up on you, guys helping off. He's not getting nothing easy. And for me, I look at it, and it's kind of almost like the Cavs. I've been watching them, and I tweeted this the other day. They don't get anything easy. You watch Toronto. They ran off every turnover, every possession, and pushing the pace. You look at Detroit. They pushed the ball every opportunity they got. You watch the Knicks. It just seems like the Cavs don't get the easy layups. They don't get that stuff because of the way their play style is. It's a lot of dribbling, a lot of ISO with him and James Harden. And that's very difficult to do, even if you LeBron. And I've seen LeBron do it better than anybody in the world for about 8 to 10 years. And that even caught up with him a little bit.
Yeah.
So when you're 6'2" and you're trying to do that, I think it zaps you. And if you have, and by the way, you said a brilliant thing, Zach. We talk about defensive tackles and Mason Graham in the first hour. After the season start, you ain't never healthy. You healthy when you're 12 and 13. Yeah. Anything past that, you're going downhill.
Yeah. No, look, we're previewing Game 3 and thinking about Game 4 and hoping like crazy that we're talking about Game 5 and 6 next week. But like when we're watching these Cavs, like what's going to fix it by extending this Donovan Mitchell and this James Harden? Like it's kind of scary times here, Jason.
We can get into that more in the offseason, but basically the Harden thing, they were in a spot, they had a distressed asset in Darius, and they traded it for another distressed asset in James Harden. There was not a big market for either one of those guys. I understand why they made the trade. The trade is what got them to this point. They don't. I think Kenny actually said it. Mike and I have said it on the show, and Kenny actually said it, that they don't make it out of the first round without Harden, and I agree with that.
That's true.
So now you've got some really hard decisions to make coming up this summer, and I think the decisions have already been made. I think we think they're hard. I don't think they think they're hard. I think this is what they're committed to. But we can talk about that hopefully later than next week.
Yeah, go ahead, McNuggets.
When you watch Donovan, and I thought Richard Jefferson did a good job pointing it out on the broadcast last night, when he's at his peak, he's damn near impossible to stay in front of. Whether it's a really good defender, whether it's a subpar defender, his combination of athleticism, explosiveness, shiftiness, he can stop on a dime, he can get to his spots. That is what makes him an all-NBA first-team caliber player, a guy who's finished top 5 and top 10 in MVP earlier in his career. At this point of the playoffs, whether it was against Toronto, where I thought they threw some wonky defenses at him, and that's why I thought he had slowed down. Whether it was against Detroit with Asar guarding him, and I said, okay, it's Asar Thompson. That makes sense why you're not having your usual efficiency. But in Games 1 and Games 2 against New York, he's had Landry Shamet, Josh Hart, Brunson, Bridges, and Anunoby. Like, none of those are horrific defenders, but those aren't lockdown first-team All-NBA guys. OG and Anunoby, when healthy, is a really good defender, but he's better against the bigger wings and the smaller, shifty guards anyway. He's just not creating the separation he's used to, and he's kind of relying on that step-back jump shot. And Jason, when you said it earlier, when you've played 16 playoff games, because you go to 2 straight Game 7s in round 1 and round 2, because your usage rate is so high, because you don't play through the bigs enough, you end up getting dead legs. And that's why a lot of his jump shots are hitting front rim and rolling around. I think he is tired. Hurt or not, we'll never know. He says he's not fatigued. He says he's not injured. We kind of have to take him at his word on that. But watching him and seeing him up close and personal like I have in the past, this does not look like the same caliber of athlete that Donovan Mitchell needs to be in order for this Cavs team to reach their ultimate level. And if he's not scoring, he has to be more of a playmaker. And last night, he had just 1 assist. He did have 8 potential assists, but the Cavs couldn't buy a 3. But he has to become much more of a Game 7-esque playmaker if he's not going to make shots for the Cavs to have any chance at making this a competitive series.
I look at it this way, McNuggets. The Cavs, when they got him, James Harden, I think one of the things that we kind of miss is when you get somebody in the middle of the year, again, you're just trying to maintain. You ain't getting better. Like, you just trying to hope that you get better because the pieces that you brought in are more talented. So if you look at the way the Cavs played last year, you go back and watch the way they did with ball movement, that's not the way they played this year. And I think, to be honest with you, they can't really I don't think they ever really had time to put an offense in that encompasses everything from maybe iso ball to James pick and roll to having secondary options off of it. It just seems like when you watch this, and this is why I actually think that the Cavs go in these long stretches where it's 18-1 or 20-2 or different things like that, is because there's really not a set offense. It's if James can break you down, or if Donovan can collapse and digs after, and then we can kick it out and hit threes, it kind of masks the fact that there is really no system. The system is, hey, move the ball and see what we can get. When other teams you watch the Knicks can run things, and they said, okay, you can definitely tell, okay, let's get Bridges a touch. Let's get Cat a touch. Hey, listen, Anunoby, let's get it. So they have more set offense, but for the Cavs, I just don't think that they have the tools in order to play different styles, and I think it's exhausting. Like, when you got to make, at 6'2", you got to make 3-4 moves just to get past somebody and then finish in the lane, that's tough.
Look, the defining quarters of this series so far are obviously quarter 4 and Game 1 and quarter 3 last night, and in both of them, Donovan's non-existent. I mean, you're right. when the Cavs are rolling, it's not just him, but it's him creating, it's him making shots, it's him drawing attention for and creating for other guys. And in those big moments, he just hasn't been there.
Jason, I look at Donovan, and man, do we always continue to go back to this? Is this something a hard set rule in the NBA? And I'm thinking it is becoming more of a hard set rule that 6'2" or 6'3" combo guys, right? Even you look at a guy like Derrick Rose. Derrick Rose was a bigger 6'4", but nowadays, if you got smaller dudes like that and you playing against, think about it, he had Scotty Barnes on him. He had Kate Cunningham on him. These guys 6'7", 6'8", 200 pounds plus. Like, is the rule, and now in the NBA, hey, look, you're going to have a lot more. If that's your best player, you're going to have a very tough time beating those teams that have guys who their best player is 6'8", 220.
Yeah, we've talked about that for years with the Cavs, that they had an undersized backcourt. They addressed that with Harden. James is much bigger than Darius was. But when your best player is Donovan's size, yeah, I mean, that's been a talking point for years. And that's why the growth of Evan was so imperative to this team, and why it's so maddening that he can't get a shot in the second half, because they do have an advantage down there. And he was terrific in the first half. And he was asserting himself, and he was playing with force and all those things that we talk about. He made a couple of threes. He can't get a shot in the second half. That's just as much on him as it is on Donovan and James, that they've got to get him more active on the offensive end, and that's on him to pound his chest and yell during timeouts, in huddles, at the free throw line when guys are shooting, hey, give me the ball, I've got position, or take it on himself to initiate, bring the ball up and initiate. He can do that. So that when you're playing with undersized guards, it's incredibly difficult to win at a high level, and that's the level the Cavs are at right now. They are now in those rounds where teams can pick on size, where those types of things get exposed, and they need guys like Evan to help carry the load.
Gee, we had a really interesting discussion yesterday about who needed to be the Cavs MVP to win Game 2. And I chose Donovan. Mike and Jason chose Evan. And in the first quarter, I'm sitting there saying, man, I've never been more wrong, right? But it turns out that neither one of them were there in the second half, and they need everybody. So I think the Cavs have found something with trying to initiate it through Evan and Jarrett a little bit, but I think the Knicks are fine with that. I think the Knicks know the Cavs are most dangerous when Donovan Mitchell is taking over for stretches, and we just haven't seen it.
And I'm actually, like, as you go talk to these guys all the time, the frustrating thing to me is when I look at the timeouts, when I look at some of the, the stretches where it's 18-1, Jason just talked about, hey, listen, be demonstrative. Give me the ball. I'm cooking down here. Cat can't guard me. There's your team is made up of people that are very, very quiet. When there's timeouts, Jarrett Allen looks like he's seen it goes. Evan Mobley has the captions for down at the screen like it's a YouTube short. He got the captions because he's not saying nothing. Donovan has been stoic. James Harden, you got to check his pulse. And then Kenny Atkinson at the end of the game, where things go wrong, he's not even calling it out. He won't even be like, listen, that's unacceptable, we guys. But when you see these other series, look how hard, like, JB was on his squad. They lost in 7, but look how these other coaches are like, no, guys. At what point who's the guy besides, I guess maybe Sam Merrill is not, Dean Wade, who is the guy who's saying, nah, we're not doing this today, guys? No, come on, pick it up. Like, we need you to do this. Who is it?
I think the closest they'd have, and Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, but Strus, like, he's the one I know. There's been a few times where he's called the guys out in the huddle. Donovan and James have alluded to it, but yeah, they're a team that doesn't have the demonstrative. I don't want to say they don't have the alpha, because Donovan is the alpha of this team, but they don't have that rah big personality that's going to get on guys. And I don't think there's a right or wrong way to coach and a right or wrong way to handle those situations. Spoelstra's not an in-your-face guy like Bickerstaff is, and he's obviously one of the best coaches. Steve Kerr goes in and out of it. So just because Kenny isn't the super rah-rah, I don't think that's necessarily a knock on him. But it's been something we've talked about for a while. They've been missing that dog in them, for lack of a better word, from their top players. And we said in yesterday's game, they're emotionally dead, which sometimes you have to be in these situations. But also you need to show a little pulse when your back's up against the wall and be able to come out swinging and fight for your life. And right now the Cavs are down 2-0. They were in the same position against Detroit. They came back and won that series. We'll see if they have the legs, the grit, the determination, the will, and the ability to do that against a much tougher team in New York on Saturday, on Monday, and they play every other day until Game 7.
They got to find it. I go back and watch Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson, when they were down 18, 20 points, he gathered everybody out, and he was in the huddle saying no. He's pointing it out. And I know that there's no wrong or right way to do it. But I'm just going to give you the guys who've been that. Like when you see the Kobe's and you see the LeBrons. I mean, LeBron was so passive aggressive. He would subtweet you. He subtweet his own people. Fit in or fit out. Like he telling people dude, Kyrie didn't even talk to nobody for like a whole year, Jason. And he was so mad and upset that he had the little bro syndrome that he was talking to Kobe like, yeah, man, they out here playing me. You know what I'm saying? They trying to act like I ain't him. And you're like, but Kyrie, you get 25 shots a night, bro, and you cooking. Why you mad? But that's what it take, though. You got to be delusional. Like, figure something out because that energy level, if you don't got the legs, maybe you can emotionally get some energy from somewhere. Hopefully they can get the home cooking and the crowd is ready to go. But sometimes the Cavs come out and don't even give them the opportunity to get into it.
I mean, I envision, a night where the shots go in. I envision where the energy is there and the desperation and all that we've seen happen 100 times. But I don't envision this becoming a real series unless Donovan completely turns it around.
Yeah. Here's a guy who talk about panic. The Cavs they're not panicking. We'll see what they do in Game 3. But are you panicking if you're the Cleveland Browns?